23 years of marriage ended when I found the photos. My wife wasn't at writing seminars. She was with him. I didn't confront her. I vanished. She came home to an empty house. 3 years later, she found me and begged on her knees. I said 3 words that destroyed her. My name is Arthur Shaw. I'm 44 years old, a civil engineer who builds bridges and highways. For 23 years, I thought I had a solid marriage. I met Eleanor when I was 21, fresh out of college. She was working at a bookstore studying creative writing at night. We married 2 years later and built what I thought was a good life. We have 2 sons. Liam's 21, studying computer science at UCLA. Owen's 19, playing baseball in Texas. When the boys left for college, I figured Eleanor and I would finally reconnect. Maybe take that Italy trip we've been planning. Instead, she found a writing group. It started innocently. Thursday night meetings at the library with other teachers and local writers. Eleanor came home energized talking about plot structure and character development. I was happy for her. Then the seminar started. The first one was in March up in the Cascades. A weekend retreat for serious writers. She said she was practically vibrating with excitement. I helped her pack Friday morning. Spent the weekend working on project proposals. She came home Sunday evening different, brighter eyes, wider smile. Her whole demeanor shifted. At first, I thought it was creative inspiration. She talked vaguely about productive sessions, but when I asked to read what she'd written, she said it wasn't ready. The seminars became monthly, then twice a month. Each time, she'd leave Friday and return Sunday with that same distant glow. Our conversations grew shorter. She started keeping her phone face down. Little things that individually meant nothing, but together formed a troubling pattern. I'm an engineer. I solve problems by analyzing data. The pattern here was clear, but I kept telling myself I was paranoid. 23 years had earned her the benefit of the doubt. Right? Wrong. Everything changed. One Friday in September, Eleanor was packing for another seminar. I was in the garage organizing tools, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. Liam called, checking in from school. We talked about classes, normal father-son stuff. Then he asked how mom was doing. Fine, I said. She's heading to another writing thing this weekend. Silence on the line. Dad, he said quietly. You know those aren't just writing seminars, right? My hand stopped moving. What are you talking about? Another pause. I think you need to pay closer attention. He wouldn't say more, but he didn't need to. My own son had just confirmed what I've been trying not to believe. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for months. That night after Eleanor left, I sat alone in our living room and made a decision. I needed the truth. Whatever it was, and if my suspicions were right, the foundation of our marriage was already gone. I just didn't know it yet. After Liam's call, sleep didn't come easy. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through months of memories, piecing together moments I dismissed as nothing. The phone calls Eleanor took in another room. The new perfume. The way she'd started dressing differently for these seminars. Clothes she never wore around town. The distance in her eyes when she looked at me like I was someone she used to know. By Monday morning, I made my decision. I needed proof, not assumptions, not gut feelings, hard evidence. I spent my lunch break searching online for private investigators. I didn't want some big agency with flashy websites. I needed someone discreet, someone who'd been around long enough to know how to find the truth without making noise. That's when I found Vince Hogan. His website was basic, just a phone number and a list of services. Surveillance, background checks, infidelity investigations. That last one made my chest tight. I called for my truck in the parking lot. A rough voice answered on the third ring. Hogan. Yeah. Hi, I said. I need to hire someone for a personal matter. You think your wife's cheating? It wasn't a question. I swallowed hard. I don't know, but something's not right. Meet me at the Crossroads Diner on Route 22 tomorrow at noon, he said and hung up. The next day, I sat across from Vince Hogan in a worn booth at the back of the diner. He was maybe late 50s, leather jacket, tired eyes that had seen too much. He had a notebook and black coffee in front of him. Tell me everything, he said, flipping open the notebook. So I did. The writing seminars, the changes in Eleanor's behavior, the late nights, the guarded phone, how she'd come home from these weekends, looking like someone who'd found something I couldn't give her. Vince listened without interrupting, just nodding occasionally, taking notes. When I finished, he leaned back and folded his arms. All right, here's how this works. I follow her, track her movements, document everything. If there's something to find, I'll find it. And if there isn't, I asked, he shrugged. Then you'll know for sure. I handed him a recent photo of Eleanor and the details of her next seminar. She was heading to a place called Cedar Creek Lodge this coming weekend, some 3-day intensive workshop. Vince slid the photo into his notebook. I'll be in touch. How much? I asked. He quoted a number that made me wheeze, but I didn't hesitate. Fine. One more thing, Vince said as I stood to leave. You sure you want to know? Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. I met his eyes. I'm sure. That Friday, Eleanor left for the seminar bright and early. She was in a great mood, humming while she packed, practically bouncing on her feet. I helped carry her bag to the car, kissed her cheek, watched her drive away. My phone buzzed an hour later. A text from Vince. Got her. We'll update soon. The waiting was brutal. I tried working on project plans, fixing things around the house, anything to keep my mind occupied. Saturday evening, another text. Need to meet tomorrow. Same place. Sunday afternoon, I sat in that same booth at the crossroads, my hands gripping the edge of the table. Vince slid in across from me and tossed a manila envelope on the table. Well, I asked. He sighed, rubbing his temple. You were right. I stared at the manila envelope like it was a live grenade. Vince sat across from me, patient, waiting. Finally, I opened it. The first photo showed Eleanor at the Cedar Creek Lodge registration desk. Normal enough. The second showed her in the lobby with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, dark hair, probably early 40s. They were standing close. Too close. Her hand on his arm, his head tilted toward hers like they were sharing secrets. My throat tightened. His name's Marcus Thorne, Vince said. 41, divorced, teaches at a community college in Riverside. He's part of the writing workshop circuit. Been showing up at the same seminars as your wife for the past 6 months. I flipped to the next photo. Eleanor and Marcus walking along a trail behind the lodge, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. They checked into the lodge separately. Vince continued, but they spent every minute together. Meals, workshops, walks. When the group sessions ended, they disappear. I followed them to a cabin about a mile up the road. My hand shook as I looked at the next picture. Eleanor and Marcus on the porch of that cabin kissing. Not a friendly peck. A real kiss. The kind that told a story I didn't want to read. How long were they there? I asked, my voice flat. 2 hours Friday night. 3 hours Saturday afternoon. Another 2 Saturday night. I closed the envelope and pushed it away. I'd seen enough. I'm sorry, Arthur. Vince said quietly. I know this isn't what you wanted to find. Actually, I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. It's exactly what I needed to find. Now I know. Vince nodded. What are you going to do? I stood up, pulled out my wallet, and counted out his fee plus extra. I'm going to handle it my way. Thanks for your work. He pocketed the cash and handed me the envelope. Evidence is all yours. You need anything else, you call me. I drove. Home in a daze. The envelope sitting on the passenger seat like a bomb. 23 years of marriage, 2 sons, a life we built together, and she'd thrown it all away for some community college teacher she met at a writing seminar. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the shock had burned away, replaced by something colder, clearer. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to give her the chance to lie, cry, or manipulate me into forgiving her. I was going to disappear. And by the time she figured out what was happening, it would be too late to stop me. Sunday night, Eleanor came home around 9 o'clock. I was in the living room, ESPN on low volume, the envelope hidden in my truck. She dropped her bag by the door and walked in smiling. Hey, she said. How was your weekend? Quiet, I said, not looking up from the TV. How was the seminar? Amazing. Really productive. She sat on the arm of the couch. I think I finally figured out the structure for my novel. I nodded, keeping my face neutral. Every word out of her mouth was a lie, and she delivered them so easily, it made me sick. That's great, I said. I'm glad it's going well. She studied me for a second like she was trying to read something in my expression. Then she shrugged and headed upstairs. I'm exhausted. I'm going to shower and crash. Sure, I said. The second I heard the water running, I went to my home office and closed the door. I had decisions to make and I needed to make them fast. Confronting her would accomplish nothing. She'd cry, apologize, promise it meant nothing, beg for another chance. Maybe she'd even end it with Marcus. But the trust was gone. And without trust, there was no marriage. So I wouldn't confront her. I'd leave. But leaving wasn't as simple as packing a bag. I had to protect myself financially, legally, emotionally. I needed a plan. Monday morning, I called my bank during lunch. I moved half our joint savings into my personal account. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger alerts, but enough to ensure I wouldn't be stranded. Then I opened a new account at a different bank entirely and started transferring money in small increments. Tuesday, I met with a lawyer. His office was in the next town over far enough that word wouldn't get back to Eleanor. I laid out the situation, showed in the photos Vince had taken. The lawyer, a sharp guy named Mark Jennings, looked through the evidence and nodded. This is pretty clear-cut. Pennsylvania is a no-fault state, but this evidence will help if she tries to contest anything. I want it done fast, I said. No drama, no drawn-out battles, just clean and final. Mark drafted divorce papers over the next 2 days. I signed them Thursday afternoon. Wednesday, I started looking for a new place. I found a small rental house on the south side of town through a buddy from work whose cousin owned properties. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, private, and available immediately. I signed a lease that evening. Thursday night, while Eleanor was at a writing group, I started packing. Not everything, just what mattered. Clothes, tools, important documents, photos of Liam and Owen. I left most of the furniture, the decorations, all the stuff that didn't mean anything anymore. Friday morning, Eleanor left for another seminar. She kissed my cheek on her way out. See you Sunday, she said. Yeah, I said. See you. I watched her drive away. Then I loaded the rest of my belongings into my truck and started erasing myself from her life. Saturday morning, I stood in my new rental house, surrounded by boxes and furniture. I'd moved in undercover darkness. The place was bare but functional. A couch, a bed, my tools in the garage. Everything I needed, nothing I didn't. I spent the day setting up my new life. Changed my mailing address at the post office to a P.O. box. Called my boss Frank and explained I needed to transition to remote work for personal reasons. Frank and I had worked together for 12 years. He knew better than to ask questions. You got it, Arthur, he said. We'll make it work. You need anything, you let me know. Next, I wiped my social media accounts. Facebook gone. LinkedIn deleted. I changed my email password, set up a new phone plan with a different number. I kept my old phone active just long enough to handle the transition. But by Sunday afternoon, it would be a deadline. The hardest part was calling Liam and Owen. Liam answered on the second ring. Hey, Dad, what's up? I need to tell you something, I said, sitting on my new couch in my empty living room. And I need you to listen without interrupting. Silence then. Okay. I told him everything. The seminars, the private investigator, the photos of his mother with Marcus Thorne. I didn't sugarcoat it. Didn't try to protect him from the truth. He was 21, a man, and he deserved to know what was happening to his family. When I finished, Liam was quiet for a long moment. I knew something was off. He finally said, his voice tight. I just didn't want to believe it. I know, I said, but it's real, and I'm handling it. I'm leaving before she gets back tomorrow. By the time she walks through that door, I'll be gone. Good, Liam said, surprising me with a hardness in his tone. She doesn't deserve a chance to explain. I need you to do something for me. I said, don't tell her where I am. Don't give her my new number. I'll reach out to you when I'm ready, but I can't have her tracking me down. Done. He said immediately. What about Owen? I'll call him next, but I need you both to understand this isn't about you. This is between me and your mother. I get it, Dad. And for what it's worth, I'm on your side. The conversation with Owen was harder. He was 19, more emotional, and the news hit him like a truck. He didn't say much. Just listen while I explained. When I finished, his voice was shaking. So, are you just leaving? Just like that? Yes, I said firmly. Because staying would mean pretending everything's fine when it's not. I won't live like that. Owen was quiet then. Okay, I understand. You can call me anytime, I said. I'm still your father. That doesn't change. I know. Sunday morning, I made one final trip to the house. Eleanor wouldn't be home until evening, so I had time. I walked through the rooms one last time, making sure I hadn't left anything important behind. In the bedroom, I placed my wedding ring on the bathroom counter where she'd see it immediately. Then I went to the kitchen table and set down the envelope. Inside were the divorce papers, signed and ready to file. On top, I placed one of Vince's photos, Eleanor and Marcus kissing on that cabin porch. No note, no explanation. The picture said everything that needed saying. I locked the door behind me, tossed my old house keys in a storm drain 2 blocks away, and drove to my new place. By the time Eleanor got home, I'd be unreachable, untraceable, gone. Sunday evening, I sat in my new living room with a beer and my phone on silent. I'd blocked Eleanor's number hours ago, but I knew she'd try calling. Probably already had. I imagined her pulling into the driveway, noticing my truck wasn't there, walking into the house, call my name, silence. Then she'd see the missing clothes, the empty closet, the half-bare dresser. She'd walk through the house in disbelief, checking rooms like I might be hiding somewhere. Finally, she'd find an envelope on the kitchen table. I wondered what her face looked like when she opened it. When she saw the photo, when she realized I knew everything. My phone buzzed, a block number. I ignored it. It buzzed again 10 minutes later. Then again, I turned it off entirely. Monday morning, I drove to my lawyer's office and handed Mark the signed divorce papers. He filed them that afternoon. By Tuesday, Eleanor would be served. There'd be no avoiding it. No room for negotiation. You're sure about this? Mark asked. Once I file, it's official. File it, I said. That week, my phone still off, filled up with voicemails I'd never listened to. I checked my email once and saw dozens of messages from Eleanor. Subject lines like, please call me, and we need to talk, and I can explain. I deleted them all without reading. Liam called my new number Wednesday evening. She's losing it, Dad. She called me crying, asking where you are. What did you tell her? I asked nothing. I told her I didn't know and hung up. Good man. She called Owen too. He told her the same thing. She's desperate. Keeps saying it's all a misunderstanding. I laughed bitterly. There's no misunderstanding. She knows exactly what she did. Thursday, I started my first day of remote work. It was strange working from my kitchen table instead of the office, but Frank had made the transition seamless. My projects continued without interruption, and frankly, I preferred the solitude. Friday evening, Liam called again. Mom hired a private investigator to find you. I'd expected that. Let her try. I cover my tracks. She's also calling everyone we know. Aunts, uncles, your old college buddies. Nobody's telling her anything because nobody knows anything. I said, that's the point. Saturday, exactly 1 week after I'd left, I receive an email from Mark. The divorce papers have been served. Eleanor had 30 days to respond. If she contested, we go to mediation. If not, the divorce would be finalized within 90 days. I sat back in my chair and exhaled slowly. It was really happening. 23 years of marriage ended with a signature and a filing fee. That night, I slept better than I had in months. I didn't need to be there to know what happened when Eleanor came home that Sunday evening. But Liam told me about it later, and the picture he painted was exactly what I'd imagined. She pulled in the driveway around 8:30, he said, still riding high from her weekend with Marcus. She grabbed her bag from the trunk, humming some tune, probably already thinking about the next seminar. The house was dark when she unlocked the door, which probably struck her as odd. I usually left lights on. Arthur, she called out, flipping the switch in the hallway. No answer. According to Liam, who'd driven down from school the next day to check on her. She'd wandered through the house, calling my name, growing more confused with each empty room. Then she'd noticed the gaps. My coat's missing from the closet. My boots gone from by the door. Half the dresser drawers empty. She must have stood in our bedroom staring at the bare spaces trying to make sense of it. Then she would have seen the wedding ring on the bathroom counter sitting there like an accusation. That's when she probably started to panic. She came back from her seminar to an empty house. And I imagine that's when it hit her that something was terribly wrong. She would have grabbed her phone, dialed my number, straight to a disconnected message. She tried again. Same result. Then she gone downstairs and found the envelope on the kitchen table. Liam said when he arrived Monday afternoon, she was sitting at that table, the divorce papers spread out in front of her, the photo of her and Marcus staring up at her. She'd been crying for hours, her face red and swollen, mascara streaked down her cheeks. He's gone, she told Liam. He just left. No warning, no conversation, nothing. Did you expect him to stick around? Liam had asked coldly. After what you did, she looked up at him, shocked. You know, Dad told me everything. He showed me the evidence. Liam, please, she begged. I need to talk to him. I need to explain. Explain what? That you've been sleeping with some guy from your writing group? That you've been lying to Dad for months? There's nothing to explain, Mom. You made your choice. She tried calling me through Liam's phone, through Owen's, through mutual friends. Nobody would help her. I made sure of that. By Tuesday, she'd hired a private investigator to find me. By Wednesday, she was calling my workplace, my old college buddies, distant relatives. Nobody knew where I was, and the ones who did weren't talking. Thursday, she got served with the divorce papers officially. A process server showed up at the house while she was getting ready for work, handed her the documents, and left. According to the timeline Mark gave me, she'd sat on the porch steps and cried for an hour. Friday, she showed up at Liam's apartment in State College, a 3-hour drive, begging him to tell her where I was. Liam called me immediately. She's here, Dad. She's a mess. Don't tell her anything, I said firmly. I won't, but she's saying she'll do anything to fix this. She says she ended it with Marcus, that it was a mistake, that she loves you. I laughed bitterly. She loves me. She's got a hell of a way of showing it. What do you want me to tell her? Tell her the truth. That she destroyed this marriage and there's no going back. Tell her I'm done. Liam did exactly that. Eleanor left his apartment in tears. The following week, I got an email from Mark. Eleanor had hired a divorce attorney, some expensive lawyer from Philadelphia. They were contesting the terms, claiming I'd abandoned her, that I'd hidden assets, that the divorce should be delayed pending investigation. She's grasping at straws, Mark said when I called him. She has no case. The evidence is clear. Your finances are clean, and you filed legally. This is just her way of trying to force contact with you. How long will this drag on? I asked. A few months, maybe, but she can't win. Eventually, she'll have to accept it. I hung up and stared out my window. Eleanor was trying everything she could to pull me back in her orbit, but I wasn't budging. She'd made her bed with Marcus Thorne, and now she could lie in it alone. 3 weeks after I left, Liam called with news. Marcus dumped her. I was in my garage working on a project for a client, and I nearly dropped my wrench. What? Yeah, Liam said. Apparently, once you filed for divorce and everything went public, Marcus decided she was too much drama. He told her it was just supposed to be a fling, but he never planned on leaving his life for her. I sat down on my workbench, processing that, so she blew up her marriage for a guy who didn't even want her pretty much. Owen talked to her last week, felt bad for her. She's a wreck, Dad. Lost weight, not sleeping, calling out of work. She keeps saying she made the biggest mistake of her life. She did, I said flatly. She's asking Owen to beg you to reconsider. So she'll do anything. Go to therapy. Whatever it takes. No, I said immediately. That bridge is burned, Liam. There's no rebuilding it. I figured. Just wanted you to know what's going on. A month later, Owen called. He'd gone home for a weekend and found Eleanor in bad shape. The house was a disaster. Dishes piled in the sink, laundry everywhere. She'd stopped going to her writing group, stopped attending seminars, stopped writing entirely. She just sits there, Dad, Owen said, his voice heavy, staring at old photo albums, crying. It's hard to watch. I'm sorry you have to see that, I said. But I can't fix her, Owen. She has to fix herself. I know. I just thought you should know. Part of me felt a flicker of something. Not quite sympathy, but maybe pity. Eleanor had thrown away 23 years for a fantasy that evaporated the moment reality hit. But that wasn't my problem anymore. 6 weeks after I left, Mark called with an update. Her lawyer withdrew from the case. Apparently, Eleanor can't afford the retainer anymore. She's going to have to represent herself or accept your terms. What are the chances she accepts? I asked. Hi. She's got no leverage, no money for a prolonged fight, and no case. I'd say within the next 2 weeks, this will be finalized. He was right. 10 days later, Eleanor signed the divorce papers. No contest, no conditions. Mark sent me the final documents, and just like that, it was over. I sat in my living room that evening holding the paperwork and felt nothing. No sadness, no relief, just a quiet sense of closure. The marriage was dead. The woman I'd loved for over 2 decades had killed it. And now we were both moving on. Except she wasn't moving on. Liam told me she'd started therapy, trying to work through what she'd done. She'd written me letters, actual handwritten letters, begging for a chance to apologize in person. I threw them away without reading them. Then about 2 months post-divorce, she did something that surprised me. She published a novel. It was thinly veiled fiction, barely disguised as anything other than our story. A woman trapped in a stale marriage, seeking passion and creativity, finding it in the arms of another man. The book painted her as a victim of circumstance. A woman who'd made mistakes but deserved understanding. Liam sent me the link. "You need to see this, Dad." I read the summary and felt my jaw tighten. She was rewriting history, casting herself as the misunderstood protagonist and me as the cold, distant husband who'd driven her away. The book didn't sell well. A few hundred copies maybe, but it was out there. Her version of events immortalized in print. I called Mark. "Can I do anything about this?" "Not really," he said. "It's fiction and she didn't use your real name. Legally, you don't have much recourse." So I let it go. Let her tell her story however she wanted. The people who mattered knew the truth. 3 months after the divorce, I started seeing someone new. Her name was Clara, a project coordinator. I'd met through work. She was smart, grounded, and honest. We took things slow. Coffee dates turning into dinners. Dinners turning into weekends together. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. 3 years passed faster than I expected. I settled into my new life with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. Work kept me busy. I'd taken on larger projects, traveled to job sites across Pennsylvania and in the neighboring states. The remote arrangement gave me flexibility, and I'd proven myself valuable enough that Frank eventually promoted me to senior project manager. Clara and I had been together for most of those 3 years. We'd met through a mutual colleague about 4 months after my divorce finalized. She was 39, a project coordinator with a sharp mind and no tolerance for games. Our first coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into weekends together, and eventually she moved into my place. What I appreciated most about Clara was her honesty. She knew my history, knew what Eleanor had done, and she never pushed me to talk about it more than I wanted to. She understood that some wounds heal better when you stop picking at them. Liam had graduated from UCLA and landed a software engineering job in Pittsburgh. Owen was finishing his senior year, already fielding offers for minor league baseball scouts. Both my sons had maintained minimal contact with her mother. Liam hadn't spoken to Eleanor in over a year. Owen called her occasionally, more out of obligation than affection. "She asks about you every time." Owen told me during one of our weekly calls. "Wants to know if you're seeing anyone, where you're living, how you're doing." "What do you tell her?" I asked that it's none of her business. I'd built a good life, a peaceful life. I had work I enjoyed, a woman who respected me, sons who'd become strong men despite their mother's choices. The past was exactly where it belonged, behind me. Then on a Saturday afternoon in early October, everything collided. Clara and I were at a coffee shop in downtown Portland, a place we discovered a few months back that served excellent espresso and had a quiet atmosphere. We were sitting by the window discussing plans for a weekend trip to the mountains. When I saw her, Eleanor, she was standing near the entrance, maybe 15 feet away, frozen like she'd seen a ghost. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, her face thinner. She looked older, worn down by 3 years of consequences. Our eyes met, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Clara noticed the change in my expression and turned to see what I was looking at. "Is that her?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," I said. Eleanor took a hesitant step forward, then another. Her eyes flickered to Clara, then back to me. Her mouth opened, but no words came out first. "Arthur," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't believe it's really you." I didn't respond, just watched her approach, my face neutral. "I've been looking for you," she continued, her voice shaking. For so long, I just want to talk to explain. There's nothing to explain, I said calmly. You made your choices. I made mine. We're done. Her face twisted with emotion. Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. No. She looked at Clara, then back at me, desperation written all over her face. Then, to my shock and Clara's clear discomfort, Eleanor dropped to her knees right there in the coffee shop. Please, she begged, tears streaming down her face. I was wrong. I ruined everything. I destroyed our marriage, and I hate myself for it every single day. Please, just let me apologize properly. Let me try to make things right. The entire coffee shop had gone quiet. People were staring. The barista stood frozen behind the counter. Clara shifted uncomfortably beside me. I looked down at Eleanor, kneeling on the floor, begging for forgiveness she'd never earn. 3 years later, she knelt before me, but I told her the same thing I would have told her 3 years ago. You made your choice when you decided Marcus Thorne was more important than 23 years of marriage, I said coldly. Now live with it. Her sobs grew louder. I ended it with him. He left me. I was so stupid. That's not my problem, I interrupted. You're not my problem anymore. I stood up, pulled out my wallet, and dropped cash on the table for our drinks. Then I looked at the barista who was watching the scene with wide eyes. You might want to call someone, I said, gesturing to Eleanor. She needs to leave. Then I took Clara's hand and walked out. We didn't talk much on the drive home. Clara held my hand, gave me space to process what had just happened. When we got back to the house, she finally spoke. Are you okay? She asked. I sat down on the couch, exhaling slowly. Yeah, I'm fine. That was intense. It was pathetic, I said bluntly. She spent 3 years looking for me. And when she finally found me, all she could do was beg. Like that would change anything. Clara sat beside me. Do you feel bad for her? I thought about that. Did I? Eleanor had lost everything. Her marriage, her family, her dignity. She bet it all on a fantasy that collapsed the moment reality showed up. And now she was alone, broken, desperate for a second chance that would never come. No, I said finally. I don't feel bad for her. She made her choices knowing what she was risking. The fact that it didn't work out the way she hoped doesn't make her a victim. It makes her accountable. Clara nodded. Good, because you don't owe her anything. That night, Liam called. Word had spread fast. Eleanor had apparently called him, hysterical, telling him she'd seen me with another woman. She's losing it, Dad. Liam said she's going to keep trying to reach you. That she won't give up. She could try all she wants. I said, I'm not engaging. If she shows up again, I'll get a restraining order. Good. You moved on. She should, too. A week later, I got a certified letter from Eleanor's therapist. It was a request for me to participate in a session as part of Eleanor's healing process. The therapist explained that Eleanor needed closure, that speaking with me might help her move forward. I wrote back with a single sentence. My participation in her healing is not required or desired. 2 weeks after that, Mark called. Eleanor had tried to reopen the divorce case, claiming she'd signed under duress. The judge had dismissed it immediately. She's grasping at anything, Mark said. But she's got no legal standing. You're in the clear. Life returned to normal after that. Clara and I took that trip to the mountains. Liam got promoted at his job. Owen signed with a minor league team. I kept working, kept building, kept moving forward. Eleanor eventually stopped trying to contact me. According to Owen, who still spoke to her occasionally, she'd moved to a smaller apartment, taken a different teaching position, and was trying to rebuild her life from scratch. Her novel had faded into obscurity. Her writing group had disbanded, and the seminar she'd once loved had become a source of shame she avoided. For months after our encounter at the coffee shop, Clara and I got engaged. We married in a small ceremony the following spring, just close family and friends. Liam stood as my best man. Owen gave a toast that brought the room to tears. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I'd build it on my terms with people who valued honesty and loyalty. Eleanor had taken a wrecking ball to our marriage. But in doing so, she'd freed me to find something better. I never saw her again, never spoke to her again, and I was perfectly fine with that. Some betrayals don't deserve second chances. Some bridges once burned should stay ash. Eleanor had learned that lesson the hard way, and I'd learned that walking away from something broken doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise.